After the defeat of the insurgents in 1863, we Lithuanians had very hard times. Many of us suffered great losses, we were deported or divested of our property. The Tsarist authorities further intensified their policy of Russification. More than that, the brutal punisher of insurgents, Vilnius Governor-General Mikhail Muravyov and his accomplice Ivan Kornilov declared that Lithuanian lands had been Russian since times immemorial, and that was why they were prepared to eradicate the Polish elements, as they put it, and to restore the Russian ones. The Russifiers decided to prohibit the Polish language in institutions. They also disallowed Lithuanian Catholics to hold any public posts, giving them exclusively to Orthodox Russians. The most terrible thing, however, was the fact that in October 1865, the Russian Interior Minister Pyotr Valuyev issued a special decree prohibiting the publication of any Lithuanian printed matter in Latin alphabet or import of such publications throughout the Russian Empire. The Tsarist officials tried to impose the Cyrillic alphabet, which was also called Grajdanka. They expected that step by step the young generation of Lithuanians would get used to writing Lithuanian words in Russian letters, and in the longer run they would forget their native language. The Tsar of Russia, Alexander II, personally supported the program of Russification in Lithuania. Before long, however, the Tsarist authorities saw that their plans were doomed. We refused to read books in Russian letters. We did not think it possible to write Lithuanian words in Russian letters. We thought that having betrayed our native tongue, we would quickly turn into Orthodox believers. Bishop Motiejus Valančius and other scientists and spiritual leaders helped us considerably in this struggle. They started publishing Lithuanian press abroad, mostly in East Prussia and Lithuania Minor. Thus, barely 2 years after the Lithuanian press ban was imposed, we had already created a whole network of carrying banned publications across the borders. We established societies of book smugglers. All the efforts of the Tsarist police to search houses for the old Lithuanian books published in the prohibited alphabet were in vain. Fruitless were their efforts to sniff out who taught their children the Lithuanian language secretly and who persistently burned books printed in the Russian Muscovite alphabet. The Russians were at pains to catch people who carried primers, calendars, religious publications, press, as well as brochures across the border into Lithuania and distributed them. We called those people book smugglers, knygnešiai. While defending our right to read in Lithuanian, we little by little started perceiving our nationality, respecting the language we spoke, appreciating our culture, which was so far by many people called as peasant or muzhik culture. Thus the national rebirth movement started in Lithuania in the second half of the 19th century. Its pioneers were Simonas Stanevičius, Kajetonas Nezabitauskis, and Simonas Daukantas. The latter published the first history of Lithuania in the Lithuanian language in 1845 in St. Petersburg. The book was called The Character of Ancient Lithuanians, Samogitians and Kalnenians. Bishop Motiejus Valančius was also very active in fostering everything Lithuanian. He spared no effort in setting up schools in which many children learned to read Lithuanian. Besides, secret schools, which were titled hardship schools, were widely spread in the countryside. Literate family members or migrant teachers used to teach children Lithuanian script. Having arrived in the village, such a teacher would teach children reading, writing and religion, and some of them geography and history as well. Following such lessons, in order to avoid being arrested by the Tsarist police, such a teacher would travel further on. We were extremely happy in 1883 when we received the first Lithuanian newspaper, Aušra, which was printed in East Prussia and was clandestinely brought into Lithuania. The editor of this newspaper was Jonas Basanavičius, who was assisted by Jonas Šliūpas, Jurgis Mikšas, Martynas Jankus, and other enlightened people of that time. In Aušra we could read about our grand past, love to our language, how to combat Russification and Polonization. Although the Aušra newspaper was published only for a short time, in 1889 we had another ambassador of national rebirth. It was the newspaper Varpas, edited by Vincas Kudirka. Many famous people of that period, Kazys Grinius, Jonas Biliūnas, Jonas Jablonskis and others, published their works in it. It may seem strange, but it is namely in the period of the press ban that many creators of Lithuanian literature disclosed their talent. The most outstanding among them were poets Antanas Baranauskas, Maironis, writers Žemaitė, Vincas Kudirka, and others. Book smugglers and migrant teachers were at permanent risk. Russian police dogged them fiercely, and having caught them, arrested them and imposed cash fines, or sometimes even deported them to Siberia. All in all, in the ban period, about 3,000 book smugglers were punished in this way. But even those measures failed to help the Tsarist authorities stop the influx of Lithuanian books into the country. During the 40 years of the press ban, our book smugglers brought into the country secretly about 5 million Lithuanian books published abroad. The Tsarist authorities succeeded in seizing only 1 in 10 of these books, and in the long run even the fiercest officials had to admit their defeat. They started quarreling among themselves whether it was worthwhile to continue the fight with those headstrong Lithuanians. At last, on the 7th of May 1904, Tsar Nicholas II lifted the ban to distribute Lithuanian press printed in the Latin alphabet. Ever since, that day has been commemorated as a major victory against the Tsarist regime, which tried to Russify and at the same time obliterate our nation.